Elderberry with my sister-in-law Ashley, and we are going to make elderberry syrup today. So I thought I would just hop on here and show you guys. I really wanted to do this just to encourage you guys how really simple it is to make elderberry syrup, and then a few things I wanted to point out. So one thing is, you use honey. I really recommend using local honey, like finding in your area. This is really important as far as immune boosting. And also your elderberries. I buy these back home from a local herbal shop that grows them locally. Try to source them locally first before buying them somewhere else. It's just something I really recommend. If you can't, that's fine. And one of the really awesome things about elderberry syrup is you can tweak it. So I add a lot of things. I add different oils. You can add herbs that aren't on this particular recipe. So feel free to just kind of do your own research and mess around with it. So what it calls for, and I will actually list this recipe below, but you're gonna do 2/3 cup of dry elderberries, and then you're gonna do 3.5 cups of water, which I've already got the water in the pot over here. 2 tablespoons of grated ginger. We also buy this locally. However, you could just buy the ginger root yourself and grate it down. You can actually already use like powdered ginger. I just prefer to do this. Cinnamon, it calls for ground cinnamon. I prefer to use the sticks because I usually always have these on hand. So it's 1 teaspoon of cinnamon. I put like just 2 sticks, so feel free to play with that as well. And then 1/2 teaspoon of ground cloves. We use the powder. You can also just use the actual clove. And then 1 cup of raw honey. So let's get started. Okay, so just have your stove on medium-high is fine, and we've already got our water right here, but she's just gonna go ahead and add the elderberry. Just dump it all in. The ginger, the cinnamon, clove, and then I put a few drops of an immunity oil that I have. I've also heard that juniper berry is really good for a fever reducer. And then when I'm back home, I also add sovereign silver. So like I said, feel free to play with this. So we got it on medium high. We're gonna let this come to a boil. So you are just going to let it come to a boil. I would say a rolling boil. And then what you're actually going to do is just reduce the heat to simmer and cover. And you can let it steep for 45 minutes to an hour. I typically do an hour. Things are smelling really good in here though. So something else I was going to add to, whenever you bring it to a boil and then you reduce it, the liquid in it will go down by about half. So that is kind of a good way to gauge how long you need to boil it for. I typically always do an hour, but I do think it's kind of dependent on the stove that you have. So just be looking for whatever you started with liquid wise, it'll be reduced by about half by the time it's ready. So now that we have let our elderberry steep for about 45 minutes, it's reduced to half the size. You are gonna want to go in and mash the elderberries. You can use a spoon. We always just use a meat grinder, like the tip of it, because it works really well. This is a really good opportunity to get your kids involved and just mash until it's like pretty reduced. And then once you do that, you're gonna transfer it through a strainer. You can use cheesecloth if you have it. I also have one of those handheld strainers that I literally just pour it into and continue to mash with a spoon, and that works really well. So we're gonna do this, then we're gonna let it cool. Once we've mashed it, drained all the elderberry and ginger out, we're gonna let it cool until about room temperature, and then we will add our honey and mix it all in, and then we will start pouring that over. So now that I've added the honey and stirred it in really well, we're just going to, I use these funnels. You can get them off of Amazon. This is an 8-ounce glass. You can use a 16-ounce glass as well. And we're just gonna literally funnel it over and fill it up. And then you will need to put this in your refrigerator, and it will need to stay in your refrigerator until you use it. If you've been following along with us talking about composting in the last few weeks too, all the elderberries after you've mashed them, that is really good. I would go ahead and add all of that to your compost. And then something else you can do, the berries still have a lot of color in them. So something you can do is use the elderberries as a natural dye. You can add the berries that you've already mashed and put them in water and boil it out some more, and then you can use that as a natural dye as well. So we have filled it up. We are good to go. We now have homemade elderberry. It seemed pretty simple, right?
Yes, it was very simple.
So you just do the product, or you put all the products in at first, and then really you just steep it, and then it takes The second half of it took us maybe 5 minutes to do.
Yeah.
So super, super easy. Really encourage you guys to do it with your kids. If you guys have any questions though, feel free to reach out to me and let me know. Thank y'all.